Ladies and gentlemen, from the Eastern Kentucky Science Center and Planetarium, my good friend and yours, Mr. Steve Russo.
How you doing?
Doing great, buddy. How are you?
Good to be back.
It's great to see you, man. It feels like so long.
Decades, I think.
Yeah, they say that time flies whenever you're having fun, but 2020 just hasn't been a whole lot of fun for anybody.
Yeah, this hasn't been a fun year, and really, everybody's only been going through this since March, but it seems like it's forever.
Yeah, I know.
Forever. So it's good to be back here, and good to have the Science Center open again.
Yeah, it's good to be talking about y'all opening back up and sitting here promoting laser shows and planetarium shows. It feels a little bit more normal.
Yeah, I think the last time you and I spoke might have been maybe moon landing stuff a year ago.
It was.
A little more than a year ago, I think it was. And
yeah.
And we've been busy after that, and then COVID came around, and nobody was busy, and now we're starting to come back to life here with the Science Center, so it's kind of nice.
Yeah, so you were telling me before we hopped on air here, it's been since March 16th or something since y'all have done anything?
Yeah, the last big event we had was about a week before that. We had the National Weather Service do their big severe weather event, and then a week later, that's when everything started shutting down. So, the schools told us they were stopped coming, and everybody shut down. I think it was March 16th. So, and we just reopened up again September 1st. So it's been a while. We had to cancel all the school groups March through June, and the public shows, and we were going to have, like all planetariums, we were going to have this big 30th anniversary of the Hubble Space Telescope. NASA sent us big posters and all this stuff to give away, and Astronomy Day never came about in April, and never did our summer camp, so it's been a terrible time for everybody, but especially for us too.
Yeah, because y'all have been totally shut down since March. I mean, haven't been able to do anything.
Yeah, we were working from home pretty much March through just about August, and my staff and I started coming back a little at a time, and in August, but we had to get, we had to have a game plan in effect to open up again. They had to go through Big Sandy and KCTCS, so that took actually several weeks to iron out a game plan and, get the decals on the floor, about 6 foot distancing, and put up the plexiglass at the counter and all that stuff. So it took a while to get us back in order again, and so we finally opened up September 1st, and we've had some people coming in.
So what do you do during the shutdown? How you're working from home and all that? What do you do from home on a planetarium?
It's funny because this was big discussion in the planetarium field around the country, because planetarium people are basically, we're lecturers to the public, where we deal with equipment. So how do you work from home? So, during a normal year, while you're always busy doing stuff for the public or doing things like this, you don't have time to do things like, update your school catalogs, update your laser catalogs. A lot of paperwork just goes by the wayside and never, ever gets done.
Yeah.
So when we were closed for those few months and working from home, that's when we got these things done that we've been wanting to do for years. At home, because at home on the computer, we updated our laser catalog, redid that. We updated our big show catalog that can be used by the teachers if they want to know certain things about, is this show good for this grade level? We updated all that. We started working on things that have to do with the science fair, which normally we have in November, but now we're not going to have till next March, and maybe virtual anyway. So sometimes paperwork gets thrown by the wayside, or you end up doing it on your lunch hour or doing it at home on the weekends. So we had a lot of chance to update things that we've been wanting to do for the longest time. And then when we finally got back into work, and we weren't open to the public yet, it was one of those, we've always wanted to clean out the area behind the dome and go through all the stuff in the classroom, see what we don't use. Some stuff's been there for 15 years. So it's actually, I don't want to say it was a good thing that we were closed, but as far as getting things done that we've been meaning to do for years, even the directors before me that never got it done, we had a chance to do that. So we made a lot of progress, actually, even though we were closed.
Well, that's good. So what did you update on the laser catalog?
The laser catalog was just, every time we'd get a new show, we put the information in our physical catalog that sits on our desk in the dome. But, it wasn't in any kind of order. It was almost like chronological order. And sometimes people would ask for, okay, what's the songs in the Beatles show? And we'd have to keep flipping through the pages. So everything got put in alphabetical order, the length of each song in the show, the amount of delay on the control panel before the show starts. And And that took me almost 3 weeks at home doing
Wow.
that. Because we've got 46, 47 different laser shows. And to put those all in the order that they're in, and to get the times down on each of the songs, and to get a logo for each of the songs, that took a while. It took another several weeks to update our school and public show catalog, because that was just thrown into loose leaves as we got information with just random order,
Yeah.
So time-consuming, tedious stuff, and the other folks that work at the Science Center, Susan and Pauletta, they were doing stuff at home, just getting more stuff in order with the budget, teacher programs, updating the school catalogs. So it's stuff that we just don't always have the time to do during the year, because you're always with groups, you're always with the public, you're always doing outreach. You don't have time to do this kind of stuff. So it was nice, quote unquote, that we had some time to do that.
Yeah.
I don't want to close for 2.5 months again, but we got a lot of stuff done, so it was helpful.
Well, it doesn't sound like you've been bored. That's for sure.
No, haven't been bored. It's just a different. We were bored in the sense that our job. We like our job in the planetarium field, because you're always talking to the public. You're talking to school kids. You turn on the stars in the dome, and 50 kids go, "Oh."
Yeah.
So that's what you live for in this business. You live for corresponding with the public and showing people things through telescope and answering questions from people. So when you're not doing that for 2.5 months, it's kind of torturous.
Yeah, I would say so. But like I said, it's good to be back finally promoting
Yeah.
stuff, because I'm looking here, you have astronaut and laser Beatles
Yes.
shows going on. What does the astronaut show consist of?
The astronaut show is an interesting show. That's one of our full dome planetarium shows, and it goes into what it's like to be an astronaut, a little bit of astronaut training, the dangers that astronauts sometimes encounter when they're in space, micrometeorites, radiation, things like that. So it's about a 25-minute show. It's one of our older shows. But it never goes out of date, really. Astronaut training is still the same. So it goes into that, and then we'll do a few minutes on the live night sky, and then laser Beatles, and we'll do about 20 minutes out of the full 30-minute show on that. So this is where everything's changed now. People who have been to the planetarium before know that we have separate planetarium shows, like we used to do a planetarium show at, let's say, 2 o'clock, and then a full laser show at 3:15. Because of the whole COVID situation, and our capacity in the planetarium now is really only about 12%.
Wow.
Because
they're so tight together, and it's in one little dome.
The governor says, 50%, but we got 85 seats in the dome, but you have to leave 6 feet in between each person, so that really takes those 85 seats and means we could really only use maybe around 12 or 15 at a time, because we need to leave the spacing. But if we did that, we really couldn't have separate shows, because we will, in a sense, sell out much quicker. And then if a person missed the planetarium show, we wouldn't do it again that same day. So what we did was we combined them. So every show that we do now is a combination of a planetarium show, a few minutes of the live night sky showing people what's up there, and about 20 to 25 minutes of laser. So people are seeing planetarium and laser in the same 1-hour show.
That is cool.
Yeah, it's different, but it allows us to do 2 of those same shows a day instead of just one planetarium and one laser. So if someone misses that first show, that's planetarium and laser, they can then see the second one we do, which will be the same thing. So it's worked out pretty good. We've had some people in there already from Owensboro, from Baltimore, Maryland. We had a family from Baltimore, Maryland the other day. We've had some people from Lexington come in, some folks from Ashland. So yeah, it was pretty good.
What makes you think that? See, because I've been there in the planetarium, hanging out and talking with people, and I ask where they're from, and I've met people from New York, from all the way in California. All over the United States. What makes you think that they want to come to Prestonsburg to a planetarium?
Well, lots of times people are in Eastern Kentucky to do the whole tour thing. Just family. So, a lot of people even out of our state, even up in New York, they've heard of the Hatfield-McCoys. When they're looking for different things to do, so you've got the Hatfield-McCoy Trail in Pikeville. During the regular season, of course, you've got Butcher Holler, where Loretta Lynn was born. And in Prestonsburg, so you've got Jenny Wiley State Park. A lot of people actually know of Stonecrest Golf Course. Golfers that keep track of golf courses all over the country, they know of Stonecrest. And so they come here. A lot of them come with families, and they see, okay, there's a science center and the planetarium. We're with the kids. Let's bring them there. Yeah. When I was a little kid, because I was always a geek, but when Mom and Dad and I planned vacations, we always visited a planetarium or a museum wherever we went. Didn't matter if we were in Arizona, New Mexico, or wherever. And a lot of people do that with kids. So when they hear that there is something in Prestonsburg or in eastern Kentucky, even if they're staying in Lexington or someplace, they might pop over here to see us.
Well, that makes sense, and it's so important for parents to do that on a vacation or just whenever they can, because especially, museums all in general, but your planetarium especially, it's fun for all ages. Whether you're 8 or 80, you can have a good time because it's so interesting to everybody. You have something for everyone.
Yeah, and I remember growing up as a kid, before I even went to college, and I went to a college that had a planetarium education program, but even before that, I probably knew more about planetariums and astronomy and science museums than most people, because Mom, Dad, and I always did that kind of stuff. So by the time I found a college that had this official coursework, I was kind of set on a path already to work in the planetarium field when I grew up. Yeah. So and we get a lot of people like that. The kids are into this stuff, into the space science thing, and hey, there's a planetarium here. Let's go.
So what do you think brews curiosity in the younger generation? Do you think maybe the sci-fi films or just kind of human nature in general? Because they say that space is the last frontier,
Yeah. I think it's a lot of things, like you said. There's a lot of sci-fi stuff now. Gravity, the old Gravity with George Clooney and stuff like that. So sci-fi is a big thing. I mean, it always has been, but we're in the space age now.
Yes.
And of course, the kids nowadays. They're always on cell phones, iPads, iPods, whatever thing they're on, and a lot of the stuff they're looking at is science fiction things. And science fiction is based on science fact in a sense, and so it gets the kids' interest in there. Lots of times, when I watched TV growing up, it was the original Star Trek and Lost in Space and stuff like that. But, it kind of gives you an interest in stuff like that. And even though planetariums are more science fact than science fiction, it's still that whole space genre of stuff. So the kids still find it interesting.
Yeah, science facts, though, can also be science fiction, too, just because of how much curiosity there still is to space. Like the other day, I was watching a documentary on dark matter. Yeah. And how we still kind of have an idea of what that is, but still really don't know. And the whole thing about black holes, still nobody to this day knows where they go. Yeah. They just now released the first photograph about that a few months ago, or maybe last year.
Last year,
there's no time anymore in 2020. But and I like what you said there about we're living in the space age. Yeah. Because I've told everybody, maybe in the next 100 years or a little bit over the fact, I think that we'll be establishing life on another planet.
Yeah. And the whole living in the space age thing, almost everything we have in our lives right now was invented or improved in just the last 50 years because of going to the moon and building things like the Hubble Space Telescope, the technology that's in these cameras right now that we're using, the microphones, cell phones, Bluetooth technology, cordless drills, the material in your sneakers. All of this stuff was developed to get us into space. 90% of all the medicines we use now were developed originally for space. Almost every piece of apparatus in hospitals you go into, MRI machines, different CAT scanning devices, were either all developed for something else in space use, or the technology that was used for something in space was used to make these devices like MRI machines. And a lot of people don't realize that. You can't wake up in the morning without something and go through your day without encountering half a dozen different devices and things that were originally invented for the space program.
See, that blows my mind, though, because I believe every single fact that you just said, but the whole funding for organizations like NASA and other space-related research, the funding is just down so dramatically. And you would think, I mean, heck, if 90% of the medicine that we use today came from space programs, they would be funded a little bit more.
Yeah,
you would think.
The NASA budget is less than 1/10 of 1% of the entire federal budget.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't realize that.
Yeah, it's very tiny.
And that's why people like Elon Musk has had to create SpaceX, and he's doing more than NASA is right now, as far as launches and all the stuff that he's into.
Yeah, and it's amazing that the wide range of what we call space spin-offs. You know, I mentioned things that are kind of high-tech, but, you know, guitars. The Ovation Guitar Company was born out of space program spinoff.
How did
is
that work?
I see this puzzled look on your face.
How does a guitar company develop from something space related?
So the original Ovation guitars, for folks that have been playing guitars for years, if you remember, they had this kind of rounded back to them, and they weren't made out of wood. They were made out of this thing that was almost like a plastic composite thing. Mm-hmm. Well, what happened was some of the materials that were used in the lunar landers, they had to be very strong, but they had to have certain sound qualities for resonance and things like that. And what happened was a helicopter company got hold of that material and said, hey, we could make helicopter rotor blades out of this because of different vibrations and things and composite strength materials. Well, Glenn Campbell and Fred Rose got together and found out that because NASA was using this material, and I forget what the name was, and the military was using it for copter blades, it's got a special resonance quality to it, but very strong. What would happen if we could mold that stuff into a guitar? And that's how the Ovation Guitar Company was originally founded. So if anyone has some of those original Ovation guitars that look like this plastic composite material with those round backs on them, that was the material originally designed for the lunar landers and then military helicopter blades.
Wow. You blow my mind with something every single time I talk to you.
You know, cordless drills. You know, NASA needed... You couldn't have an extension cord running from here to the moon, obviously, you know, but you needed cordless stuff. So NASA went to Black & Decker and said, we need stuff that could be recharged, cordless, this and that. And what happens with NASA is NASA's not allowed to hold a copyright or a patent on anything. So if NASA goes to Black & Decker and says, hey, we need you to invent a cordless drill for space, which, of course, then ends up everybody's got cordless now, Black & Decker gets to keep the patent.
Oh, I get what they done there.
So you know, this is how NASA works with things. So, you know, part of NASA's job is to spark technology and innovation for the private industry. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, everybody now uses personal computers, but, I mean, when I grew up, one computer was as big as this building.
Yeah.
And, you know, John F. Kennedy, when he started the space program or the push to the moon, you know, basically, he literally went to IBM in New York, up in Oswego, New York, and said, look, we need 2 computers to fit into a space capsule 4 feet in diameter. Come up with something. Personal computer industry is born. That's how this stuff works.
Wow. See, what blew my mind whenever I went to the Planetarium last year to watch the 50th anniversary laser show, there was this one woman, I forget her name, but was standing next to the books that they had to write the launch codes in.
Yeah.
And the stack of books were as tall as her because there was no computers back there where you could just type everything on.
Everything was done by hand, you know, even going to shortly before the moon landings. You know, these guys at NASA and the guys at Goddard were using slide rules to figure this stuff out. You know, and a person who knows how to use a slide rule can blow away anybody with a calculator. I mean, they can use them that quickly. And I at one time showed, I think it was Apollo 13. I showed Apollo 13 once to a high school group back around the year 2001 when I was teaching in Long Island. And the kid was like, Mr. Russo, what's that? It's a slide rule. I had no clue what it was.
To be honest, I didn't know what you were talking about there at first either.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I wish I had one. Got one. You know, it looks like a ruler with this little slider on it with all these numbers, and literally by sliding it back and forth, you could do multiplication, division, and literally there were no pocket calculators when we were really getting ready to go to the moon. Everything was done on these things called slide rules. And literally, if my father-in-law was an engineer whose company actually did stuff for the space program, and I used to watch him use a slide rule, and like, you know, we used to do this. I'd give him a problem to solve, and he'd have it done before I'd have a chance to do it on the calculator.
Wow.
Because if you know how to use a slide rule, that was a little computer. I mean, that was just mechanical slide rule.
But see, stuff like that also sparks up the conspiracy theory that we weren't very technologically advanced back
Right.
in 1969. So how in the world did
How
we go
did
to
we
the moon?
get to the moon?
Yeah.
You know, the models of the lunar landers, when they were putting this stuff together out at Grumman in Long Island, no CAD programs, again, no computers, they were going to the local Sears and Macy's and getting the refrigerator and appliance boxes, and they were actually cutting out these things with a razor blade, designing the original lunar landers by building models with the boxes kids would always make forts in when you were little, you know, a Sears refrigerator box. Because, okay, if that didn't fit, we'd cut a little bit off of that, and that works there, and that works there. And literally, they were designed with appliance boxes.
And how long did they have to do this from the time that JFK made his speech until the moon landing?
Yeah, JFK did the speech in May of 1961, and we were on the moon in July of 69. 9 years.
Wow.
And in those 9 years of time, and when JFK first announced that in his urgent national needs speech in May of 1961, he came up with, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. And like the guys at NASA, like, we don't have a communications network set up. We don't have alloys. We don't have rocket fuel designed. We had absolutely nothing. Literally, in 9 years' time, you had to develop about 100 years of technology to get us to the moon and back. We didn't have the rocket fuels before then. We didn't have plastics that were lightweight but as strong as steel. You know, the walls of the lunar lander were 1/8 of an inch thick.
Wow. And you know, but it's beautiful though, because whenever I watched the 50th anniversary Planetarium show that you done last year, to see everybody working together and the sense of American pride that everyone had during those 9 years, it was a beautiful thing to see.
It took a little over 400,000 people to get us to the moon, and that's something a lot of people don't realize too. When you think of space, you think, okay, it's NASA and launching rockets, but the Saturn V rocket, for example, had over 1 million moving parts on it. We're just talking moving parts, not wires, not software, over 1 million moving parts. NASA's only job is to launch stuff. Who made those 1 million parts? Companies in almost every state in the country. New York, Kentucky, Tennessee. Even now, there's 13 companies here in the state of Kentucky that make things for NASA. And it may be a nut or a bolt. It may be a light bulb. But all of those parts had to come together into one thing. Parts of the rockets were made in California. Parts of the rockets were made in Florida. And yet they all had to join together from separate companies to fit with tolerance levels that nobody would imagine nowadays.
Yeah, but
it was an effort.
Yeah, it was quite an effort. And I know it was a 50th anniversary thing, but do you ever think about bringing that show back? Or maybe if people want to rent it out, can you still show that?
It's still in our database of stuff, and we actually it was the last show we showed just before we closed for March. We brought back the Apollo 11 anniversary show. Because it's a good feeling show, and also it's really a good educational show to show people what it took. It took 9 years, 400,000 people. And you know, it's not only the high-tech stuff, okay? At all of these NASA buildings, you need janitors, window washers, people to clean, to make sure stuff is out of the way. So it's not just that we employed scientists back then to do this. Everything imaginable had to be done to get us to the moon, from the guy sweeping the floor to the people writing the computer programs to the people pressing the launch button. 400,000 people to get to the moon.
It's amazing to think about stuff like that.
It's cool.
Yeah. So are you a fan of what SpaceX is doing right now?
You know, I wasn't until recently. But watching some of the stuff they've done within the past 3 or 4 months, I'm on board.
What made you get on board?
I guess actually watching the success of their launches, the launching of the 2 astronauts into space, my reason for originally not being on board at the beginning was in the large scale of stuff. Okay, like again, took 400,000 people in 9 years to get to the moon. I don't think any private company in space has that ability to do a major, major project again. But watching what they did the other day of getting our 2 astronauts to the moon, the first time in how many years we've launched Americans from an American spaceport, and the stuff they're doing now, I think they've got some really good potential. Again, maybe not for a program like landing people on Mars or Moon, but they can definitely assist in that. So I think it's a good thing now. They've changed my mind overnight as far as supporting, SpaceX, and I think it's a good thing.
Yeah, that's what they're eventually going to be going for, is establishing life on Mars, from what Elon Musk is talking about. I don't know how soon of a thing that will be, but with the way technology is advancing, heck, in just 100 years, well, less than 100 years, we went from riding horses to putting a man on the moon.
Yeah. And
so you think 100 years from now, who knows what's possible?
I mean, back in 1960, landing on the moon was science fiction. It was science fiction.
Yeah.
My grandfather used to joke around. He was an old Met fan when the Mets couldn't play ball any better than I could. And my grandfather would always say, yeah, the Mets will win the World Series the day a man walks on the moon. It's happened the same year.
It did?
Yeah, 1969. Mets won the first World Series. Astronauts went to the moon. It's like, wow, my grandfather must have known something. I don't know.
Well, so he'd already passed away by that time?
Oh no, he saw he saw both the Mets win and us land on the moon. He passed away in the mid '70s. Yeah, and I always called him and I said, Grandpa, you were right. I said, yes, same year. It was kind of interesting. Landing on Mars is interesting.
It's the atmospheric conditions that will kind of give us a hard time, right? From what I've read about it.
It's a lot of stuff. A friend of mine upstate New York is a heart surgeon. Her name is Heidi DeBlock. And for about 15 years, she was the official flight surgeon for NASA, meaning that she examined the astronauts before they took their space flight. She took all the biomed readings during their space flights and examined them when they came back. And she did a very interesting talk at a planetarium conference at my old planetarium upstate New York back in 2009. And her talk is called, and she still does it for school groups in Albany, New York area, and her talk is called, Do We Have the Heart to Go to Mars? She has data, and this is scientific data of 15 years of astronauts of all ages, men, women, going into space and coming back. We can't do it.
What makes you say that?
The data that she has and that she shows, the body changes when you go into space, even for a month's worth of time. You have calcium loss in the bones. You have weakening of muscles. The heart pumps differently. That's why astronauts have to exercise 2 and 3 hours a day on treadmills to keep the heart pumping. Because you're in zero G, everything works differently.
Yeah, don't even the organs move around?
Yeah, the organs shift inside the body. The visual capacity of your eyes diminish. Almost every single organ and thing with your body reacts differently in space. And that's even after only a month of being in space at a time. She's had a chance to examine astronauts that went to the space station and back and spent almost a year there. And what happens to the human body is almost disastrous. It takes the astronauts almost 2 years to recover and get back to normalcy on the Earth. Everything from just being able to walk to not being bent over from the pain in your body of the organs getting back into the right place. And now we're talking Mars. We're talking, with current technology, 9 months to get to Mars.
Yeah.
If you wanted to then bring those astronauts back, you'd have to wait about another 8 months for Mars to get back into a certain position with the Earth. So you're talking 9 months getting there, 8 months of staying there, 9 months of coming back. So now we're talking, okay, the space flight itself with all the problems of zero G in the body and the calcium bone loss and things like that. But now you mentioned, okay, so now we're on Mars. Okay, Mars never gets brighter than about maybe an hour after sunset here. So now you've got your eyes reacting differently, atmospheric pressure, half the gravity of Earth. So 9, 8, and 9, you know, that's almost 2 years of your body not functioning correctly. And she's got data that shows in many cases a lot of these organs would shut down and you would die while you were on Mars.
Yeah, it's almost like we're not meant to go almost, but you would think that, you know, maybe that is our evolution to go out and explore further into the universe.
And it is. And because, you know, like I say, Heidi's been doing talks on this data for ages, and it's official NASA medical data. And yet, when NASA had about a year ago, I guess it was, kind of a recruiting program of people trying to get people to get into the astronaut program to go to Mars, NASA made no bones about it. They said right on their thing, right on their sheet of what to expect. They said chances are you will never come back to Earth. You will either die in flight or die on Mars.
Yeah. Well, the mission 1X or whatever they called it, whenever they were supposed to send those 4 astronauts to Mars, it was a one-way trip. They were not coming back.
And they still had over 3,000 people apply for this thing. So, you know, the human spirit of adventure, if you're that kind of person that wants to do this thing, and the astronauts are, and anyone else who is willing to, you know beforehand, you're probably going to die on Mars.
Yeah.
And they still have almost 4,000 people apply for this thing. Now, I wouldn't. I'm a chicken, okay? But you know, people that do this stuff, they do have the right stuff. It's different for them.
Yeah, well, with the way the world is going, if they were to make that same announcement here in the year 2020, you'd probably have a lot more than just 300,000 people willing to do something like that.
You know, so it's, there's always going to be a group of people who want to do this, but the chances of either getting to Mars or surviving are pretty much zero.
Yeah, I bet Earth is basically our best hope in this solar system, but I've seen in other research in solar systems, they've found planets that look exactly like Earth. It's just light years away.
Yeah.
So I think that's where we have a much better option of going, but it's just how in the world can you get something to go that fast and sustain life for that long? And
that's the whole problem with Mars. Even though it's fairly close, you're still talking a 9-month journey with the technology that we currently have. And you know, until you could develop something faster that can get people to Mars in, let's say, a month, okay, then we're talking. Now we got some decent possibilities. You know, still living on Mars is difficult, but at least the trip itself can be shortened, because you're talking about 9 months of traveling. It's like, are we there yet? Yeah, let's forget it. Yeah, you're not there yet.
See, I'm a fan of SpaceX, because whenever I heard of NASA being so defunded, it really broke my heart. But to see some billionaire like Elon Musk to go about the process, I just had a little bit more hope there.
Yeah.
Then he started talking about crazy stuff. And did you see where to sustain life on Mars or make it sustainable for life, they were going to drop nuclear bombs on the polar ice caps to help release oxygen into the atmosphere.
Yeah.
What in the world are you talking about, Elon Musk?
Terraforming. NASA's played around with this over the years, and on a small scale in a room about as big as we're sitting in now, where they have made a Mars atmosphere. You could change the atmosphere of that room, because NASA has these labs that could do that. And then over a course of a couple of years, they were able to change it to a more Earth-like atmosphere. So it's far-fetched, but okay, so you know, basically terraforming is changing the climate of a planet to make it livable. So you've got Mars, which has an atmosphere similar to Earth's, but you know, we'd still need breathing apparatus. The temperature is fairly close. I mean, on a warm summer day on Mars, on the equator, it's 90. At night, it goes down to about 0 on the equator. But by changing around the climate and actually, in a sense, creating man-made global warming, it actually works to your benefit that you then change things more Earth-like. Now, we still have the problem of gravity, because the gravity is about half of that, so at some point, that atmosphere that you made is going to end up floating off into space. But what he's talking about is is I don't want to say legitimate, but on paper it would work in a sense, because you've got to make it warmer there. By making it warmer, you then have more of a chance of some of that water that comes up from underground to stay as water and not ice. You have a chance of then things growing and trees then adding oxygen and stuff like that. So theoretically, what he's talking about, as wacko as it sounds, let's blow up the polar caps, but from that scientific standpoint of changing things, chemicals and whatnot, it possibly could work. It's just a weird sound. Let's blow up polar caps to make things livable. Yeah, it's weird.
So do you think Pluto's a planet?
Of course.
I do too. I don't. They always flip back and forth between that, and I've never really. I guess I can understand both sides, but to me, yeah, it's always a planet.
Well, believe it or not, when that ruling was made back in, was it 2006? I think it was. Only less than 300 astronomers out of 15,000 voted on that new definition for a planet, and somehow they passed it.
So,
whoa, hey, wait a minute, how'd that happen?
So it was just the astronomers got to vote, but only a handful of them.
Yeah, it was the International Astronomical Union, which is kind of like the...
Did you get to vote on it?
No.
Oh.
It's kind of like the governing body of all astronomers.
I get it.
Okay. Almost like the American Bar Association is for lawyers. Okay.
Yeah.
So they were going into this meeting in 2006, and what was on the table was they were actually going to add planets to the solar system. So instead of having 9, we were going to have 12, because there were 3 other objects out there, Quaoar, Sedna, and something with a number on it, UB something, I don't remember the number. They were going to add planets to the solar system. One thing changed over another thing, and they were debating on it, because there was a group of astronomers at this meeting that were what we call planetary dynamicists. Mm-hmm. And they judge everything in the solar system on gravity and its effects. They came up with this thing that because Pluto didn't have enough gravity to clear its own orbit around the sun, meaning its orbit interfered with something else, and it does, it interferes with Neptune's orbit. Therefore, if it didn't have enough gravity to clear its own orbit, it couldn't be a planet. Well, this was debated and debated and debated and debated for about 2 days. And at that point, people were under the assumption there was not going to be any vote at all, so a lot of the people left the conference and went home. The very next morning, Owen Gingerich, who was the head of the Planet Definition Committee, gets a phone call from the IAU saying, you know what, we went ahead and voted and Pluto's not a planet anymore. And Owen's like, what are you talking about? I'm the head of that committee. You didn't tell me to do any vote.
That's dirty. That's very dirty.
So they came up with that new definition, which scientifically has a lot of flaws in it. It's not even scientifically correct, and therefore Pluto wasn't a planet anymore. But most of the people left the meeting, and since they didn't allow online balloting or anything else, the only people left at the meeting were the planetary dynamicist scientists that judge everything by gravity. That's not the way you determine a planet. Pluto has geology, it has climate, it has had geologic evolution, it has 5 moons, it orbits the sun. It's not that much different than Earth. It's a planet.
Yeah. I was raised for years thinking it was a planet, but all of a sudden people want it. I'm more like you.
Yeah, and most astronomers in the world do not, including myself, we do not buy into the new definition, because if Pluto is not a planet, neither is Neptune, because Neptune shares part of its orbit with Pluto, so Neptune doesn't clear its own orbit. Jupiter and Mars do not clear their own orbits. They interfere with the asteroids in the asteroid belt. The Earth does not clear its own orbit, because what most people don't know is there's what we call near-Earth asteroids. There's about 10,000 of them orbiting as the same plane as the Earth. So if Pluto's not a planet by that new definition, neither is Neptune, Mars, Jupiter, or the Earth.
Well, speaking about planets, people probably want us to talk about this right here. Venus.
Yes.
Yeah, apparently the other day that they found life on planet Venus, but it was just microbes in the air, from what I read.
Well, and it wasn't even really microbes. So here's the best way to break it down on a very easy level so people can understand this. I'm in my kitchen, and I've got flour, chocolate chips, sugar, eggs, and milk.
This is making me hungry.
Yeah, I know. I've got the ingredients to make chocolate chip cookies. I don't have the cookies. I just have the ingredients. Any of my musician friends out there, okay? If you got chords on a guitar, if you got a G, an F, an A, and a D, you don't have a song, you just have chords. You have to put it all together. And like the ingredients for the chocolate chip cookies, you got the ingredients, but you don't have the cookies. So what this group found, this group of scientists found, this group of astronomers from MIT found, they found the ingredients where if they're put together in the right combination, under the right circumstances, temperatures, pressures, whatever, you then will have life. They found ingredients, didn't find life.
So would it basically create bacteria if all those
Most
if it was
likely.
put together? Okay.
You know, Venus itself is, we call it the goddess of beauty, but because years ago we thought it was like Earth back in the 50s, but you're talking about a planet whose temperature every day is around 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit. Doesn't matter, winter, summer, spring, or fall, it's all the same. You're talking about an atmospheric pressure that's equivalent to what you find roughly 3,000 feet below the surface of the ocean here, which would like crush a submarine.
Yeah.
You're talking about a place where the atmosphere is full of a lot of carbon dioxide, the oxygen, but a lot of it is sulfuric acid, where it literally rains acid rain. It rains sulfuric acid. Now, it never actually hits the surface. It evaporates before it gets there because of the heat. So this is not a place that most kind of life that we know could ever really exist or form.
How do they know all of that stuff is on a planet that is however many millions of miles
We've
away?
sent spacecraft there. I mean, the Soviet Venera back in, I think, the 60s, we've sent spacecraft there. And to show you the conditions on Venus, within about 45 minutes to an hour after the spacecrafts get there, they dissolve.
Okay, now I get it now.
Sulfuric acid. So, these scientists discovered the ingredients of life. And what I guess bugs me is I've seen this happen before. This happened back in, I don't remember when it was, maybe the late 90s, with scientists came out, we discovered fossils on Mars. A year later, they found out it wasn't. It was just erosion from geology. My concern with science nowadays is when scientists of any field, geology, biology, astronomy, whatever it is, before you release a big statement to the public, you really need to have the facts there. Mm-hmm. You can't start releasing statements, hey, we think we found alien life on Mars, because that's going out to the public. This takes a lot more studies, a lot more research, maybe 2 or 3 more years of research before you come out and say something like this, because it ends up, it's misleading. Mm-hmm.
What makes you think that they jumped the gun like that? Is it just wanting to remain relevant with pop culture, or is there something else?
There's a lot of things. I find that a lot of scientists today, in all different fields, like to get that 15 minutes of fame real quick.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking.
The other thing is that once you come out with something like this, they're pretty much guaranteed that they're probably going to get some kind of funding from the private sector or maybe the government, and that gives them job security and what they're doing. They now have funding for the next 5 or 6 years to do their project. It's like these scientists that want to build in these defense fields for asteroids coming in and destroying the Earth. Astronomers know you have a better chance of winning the Powerball lottery than an asteroid actually hitting the Earth and doing any destruction. But if we put in this system, it's funding for these things. Thomas Edison, who I'm not a big fan of, said it best. Something along the lines when he improved the light bulb, it took him 100 different failures to then finally get to the thing.
Yeah.
And that's what science is. It's a set of failures in your experiments in order to come out with the final product that works. And I think lots of times nowadays these scientists jump the gun, release things to the public when they really shouldn't. Because what's going to happen is within the next 6 months or a year from now, they're going to find out this wasn't the case. It happens like this all the time.
So what is our defense if an asteroid were to come at the Earth? Do we
Yeah,
have like a laser to shoot it
You
out
don't
of
have
the
any
sky?
defense. But I mean, something, a meteor crater, Arizona. Okay, yeah, there's a hole in the ground a mile long, 600 feet deep. Middlesboro, Kentucky, only city in North America built inside of a meteorite crater. These things can happen.
Yeah.
But you're talking maybe once every 100,000 years. Again, ignoring science fiction movies, most meteors, most rocks in space are no larger than the size of a raisinette. By the time they come through the atmosphere, they're totally gone.
Yeah.
You know?
See, that was the big scare of the meteorite coming November 3rd or whenever it was, the day before the election. Yeah, it was like 6 feet wide or something like that. Like, why are you worried
that's going to
about
end up barely the size of,
Yeah, probably like a little pebble.
Yeah, by the time that would even... And we see this all the time nowadays. Asteroid coming, within this many miles to Earth. Every year this happens. It's a non-event, really.
So is that like what we were talking about earlier with jumping the gun on stuff like that, just trying to maybe get funding or the 15 minutes of fame?
A lot of it is the fun. And my problem with that is it becomes the boy who cried wolf. When we really do find something, then something, we've heard this story before. It's not, at that point, it's going to be hard to separate the truth, because the scientists will say things so many times, and after a while, okay, we're not even going to bother listening to this anymore because it never works out that way.
Yeah.
So you need to really do a lot more research before you come out and what was it? 2 months ago when all the news headlines were, for the first time in history, we have 2 named storms coming into the Gulf.
Yeah.
That was before they even turned into hurricanes. Okay, two hurricanes going to hit Louisiana at the same time. One of them ended up not even being a hurricane. So here we jumped the gun again for sensationalism of a headline.
That's exactly what it is right there. Just a kind of a fear factor to get people riled up about something.
Yeah, so it's as a professional astronomer, I want to be alive. I don't know if I will be or not. I want to be at that point when we 100% have discovered life out in the universe. Every astronomer wants that.
So
we do.
So you are a believer in
of
aliens.
Course.
It blows my mind to think that there's people out there that don't. My big argument for it is, okay, our sun is a star. Right here in little eastern Kentucky, you can look up in the night sky, and there's billions of stars out there, which means it all has its own solar system, the possibly... Who knows how many planets revolving around each star. So that's billions more planets, and we're the only ones? That don't make any sense.
In our Milky Way galaxy alone, just our little neck of the woods, so to speak, in the universe, we have 300 billion stars. About a third of those, which means 100 billion stars, are about the same age as the sun, which means the potential for planets. Even if there was only one planet going around each of those 100 billion stars, you're talking in our Milky Way alone, a potential of 100 billion planets.
So what is your belief on what these so-called aliens are? See, I don't think they're little green men. They can look like just like you and me. Who knows what they would look like?
And years back, when I was teaching an advanced astronomy class in a high school in Long Island, I had a whole section on life in outer space. And although every movie we ever watch, the alien's always the same, green or gray with the big black beady eyes, they're always the same. But in reality, the conditions of a planet, in a sense, determine what life looks like. Life on Jupiter wouldn't look the same as life on Mars. Different pressures, different gravities, different atmospheres, different eyes. Okay, like for example, if you had life on a place like Pluto, the eyes might have to be super, super big to try to accumulate as much light as you can, because it's dark on Pluto. If you had life on a planet closer to the sun, the eyes might be smaller to prevent blindness from brightness. If you're on a place where there's different atmospheric pressures, heart, lungs, kidneys would be different, depending on how much blood they have to pump. And even the size or the height or the width of an alien life form would have to be different, depending on where you are. And again, when astronomers talk about life in the universe, we don't necessarily mean something like you and I. It could be something only visible under a microscope, because that is also life.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there has to be life someplace else, because we just spoke about 100 billion potential planets in our galaxy alone. We literally know of hundreds of thousands of other galaxies that have that same amount of stars that could harbor life. So we have zero proof that there's life anyplace else. Zero. But logic tells us there has to be. Now, the other thing is, looking at it from a different standpoint, let's say we do discover life someplace else, whether and maybe it's a humanoid form, like us. When and if that finally comes out, it changes a lot of stuff. It will change the whole psychology of the human mind. It could have psychological implications. What would people really be able to handle that we're not alone? Religious implications, political implications. It's a major thing, and I call attention. I had mentioned this movie to you before, the movie Contact with Jodie Foster, where they actually get signals from the star Vega, which is fairly close to us. That movie, in a sense, kind of sums up all the different things that could happen if we finally discover a real life form. Would humans be able to handle that mentally, psychologically? Who knows?
See, I think that we would, because with the years of watching all the sci-fi films, and you'll still have the occasional freak out, but I think we can handle it much better now than we could have back then.
Back in the 40s, 50s, or 60s, yes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. When they played War of the Worlds on the radio, and people thought the actual world was ending and freaked out.
Yeah.
I think that we can handle it a lot more. But I was reading this thing, I forget exactly what they call the theories, but the one theory that there is no life out there, that we're the only ones, or maybe we're the most intelligent life in the universe and everybody else is still trying to catch up. There's so many theories. Do you think that we've been visited before?
No. Only because there's zero proof. Nothing. I mean, you know.
Did you see the Tic Tac UFO video last year?
You know, going back to the 50s and the 60s and UFO sightings. And so here's questions astronomers always ask with these things. Okay, so UFO does not mean flying saucer. It just means an object we don't know what it is. If I take something out of my pocket and throw it across the room, if you don't know what it was, it's UFO.
Yeah, an identified flying object.
That's right, exactly. So over the years, since the term flying saucer was first coined back in, it was 1950 something, no one has ever gotten a clear photograph, a clear video, nothing. And yet the technology has developed that even with our cell phones, you can get clear pictures. Yet to this day, over thousands and thousands of reports of UFOs and flying saucer sightings, no one has ever gotten a photograph. There's no proof that anyone's ever been visited, even though you do have cases of people that say they've been whisked away to Zeta Reticuli and back again. Zero proof. Again, that doesn't mean it's not out there. It just means there's no proof it's ever happened.
But did you see the UFO Tic Tac video I was talking about last year? Yeah. See, now that, I don't exactly know if that's so-called proof, but it was very weird because, I mean, this is videos from I think it was the Air Force and the Navy. Yeah. It was both of those military organizations. And it was weird because... Well, the object that it was going at was rotating as it was going. There was another video that they had. It dropped from, it was like 15,000 feet down to just a foot right above the water, and just like that, like in a second. Yeah. So do you think that like maybe that's just technology they're not telling us about, or what can explain that?
It could be technology. It could also be, you know, the human mind when it comes to things, the human brain and the eye combination when it comes to things in the sky doesn't actually see things that they think they're seeing. You know, if you ever watch a shuttle launches on TV, you know, the shuttle's going up, but then it looks like it's going down. It's not. It's still going up, the angle. Back when I was upstate New York years ago, I got a call from a restaurant, a state trooper actually at a restaurant that was on a lake, and an entire restaurant full of people saw this UFO come down and land in this lake about 100 feet off the end of this restaurant. 100 people, state troopers, police, general public. They saw this thing come down out of the sky and land there. After about 3 days of research, it was a satellite that burned up 400 miles away up in Canada. Yet every single person there, from the angle, thought that was coming down.
Oh, okay.
It's now and to kind of show you how this works in the sky, the moon illusion, where it always looks like the moon is much larger when it's rising on the horizon. The eye and the brain has trouble determining sizes, distances, and angles of things in the sky. That moon illusion, you could prove it's totally wrong. You see that moon coming up and it covers the whole horizon. Well, you make one of these little paper telescopes and you make it that exact size the moon is, and you scotch tape it so it's that way. And 6 hours later, when the moon is up in the sky and it looks a lot smaller, put that in there, it's the same exact size.
Has there been anyone that kind of makes you think a little bit? Is there anyone that's had a story maybe you believe a little bit more than others? Have you heard of Bob Lazar?
Yes. Bob Lazar.
See, that man's story right there, it's I don't necessarily believe every single thing that he says, but there's a lot of stuff that would be hard for him to fake, if you will.
Yeah. I've seen things in the sky that I could not match up to a specific astronomical event or a satellite or whatnot. I've seen things. I mean, I've been observing the sky for over 60 years. So and a lot of my astronomy things, we've all seen things that we cannot explain. But what does that mean? Is it something that we just couldn't explain, or is it something from outer space? You don't know. But, and I would love to see the proof of that, all of my astronomy, but I would love to see the proof that we've either been visited or we're going to be visited, or something that I would love right now, while we're talking, for something to come out right on US 23 and land there. Proof. I'd love to see that. I'd probably hide under the desk. but I would love to see that. The astronomer in me wants to see that.
I think that we all do, just to have the sense that we're not alone in this universe.
Because that's been a thing since the dawn of civilization. Are we alone? And the movie Contact is great for that. The general public, the layman, and us professional people, we would like that question answered. And we actually sent a message into space back in 1973 to hopefully answer that question. So, out at the NASA sent a message from the Arecibo, Puerto Rico radio telescope. That was a big part of the movie Contact. They sent this radio message into outer space. It was basically a radio message that it basically, hi, we're from the solar system of Sol. We have 9 planets. We're from the Earth. We're people, carbon-based, whatever. So they sent this radio message. Now, again, this is traveling the speed of light, 186,000 miles per second, because that's how radio waves travel. So they sent it to the Hercules star cluster, because in the Hercules star cluster, we know that there's thousands and thousands of stars that are the same age as the sun, and which means the potential of life-bearing planets. This is the closest star cluster to us that we could have sent this radio message to. So the message leaves Earth in 1973. The message will get to that star cluster in the year 25,000. 25,000, not 2,500. So we send this message out there. Let's say there's a civilization there that gets this message. So now we have several possibilities. Number one, in the time that message was sent, is that civilization so much more advanced than us that they can't read the message, all they get is static because it was an antiquated message. Number two, maybe the civilization that's there is not as intelligent as us and they can't figure out the message. Number three, best case scenario, they get this message and say, holy mackerel, there's life on this place called Earth. Let's send a message back to them. Tell them we received it. Well, now you got another. So the round trip of this thing is 50,000 years. Is the Earth still going to be here at that? Are people still going to be here on the Earth? Will anyone have the technology to read that message back on the Earth? None of the scientists are obviously going to be alive.
Yeah, do they even speak the same language? Who knows?
Yeah, and that's why it was sent in the language of math, which in theory would be the universal language, mathematics, which also what that movie Contact is based on, mathematics being universal. So in reality, we sent the message someplace knowing that we could never really get an answer. But again, like you had mentioned, it's that human quest for knowledge. And we have to, what John F. Kennedy said when we're going to the moon, why climb the highest mountain? Because it's there. I know it's an old cliche, but that's why you do that.
And we've had radio signals from other parts of the solar system, too, that we've interacted with. And that it kind of gives us a little bit of hope. And I don't know, it's almost something kind of in our DNA to be on the lookout for that. Because I've also studied a lot of history and ancient texts and stuff like that. And in all of these great civilizations, especially Egypt, they were visited by so-called sky people.
Yeah, right. Although writings on walls shows something that doesn't seem Earth-like.
Well, even in the Bible, they say that God came down on a chariot made of fire.
Yeah.
To me, a chariot made of fire sounds like a rocket ship.
Yeah.
So who were, and just how much we advanced as people, going from cavemen to sitting here talking in microphones and all of that. It feels like somebody came down and tweaked us just a little bit.
You look back on cave writings, the pyramid stuff, and there's writings on the walls that show like alignments of stars and planets that's gone back 300 BC. There's always been a connection of humans with the sky. There's always been a connection in one way or another. The pyramids, when they built the pyramids, they were aligned to specific stars in the sky and directions. And even 2,000 years ago, when they built the pyramids, they aligned certain light shafts in the pyramids that actually look out on the North Star today, which was not the same North Star 2,000 years ago, yet somehow they had this knowledge to predict 2,000 years in the future that this window will look out on this thing called Polaris, which will be the North Star. Wow. Whereas back then, something called Thuban was the North Star. But they knew the sky so well, geometry, figured things out, knew how to predict eclipses and sky motions thousands of years into the future. In a sense, considering nowadays we have computers to do all this, they were probably smarter in that age than we are in our age to figure all this stuff out with just observing.
I feel like I'm too dumb to talk to you sometimes.
No, it's just cool stuff.
It's very cool stuff. It's fascinating.
That they were able to predict how the sky would look 2,000 years after they built these things.
Yeah.
I mean, with no computers.
Yeah, it really does make you wonder. And I would love to have seen the sky back then with no lights. There's no cities. I would say it was beautiful. And
that's why we have planetariums.
They're needed.
Because that's planetariums, whether it's ours or anyone, any place in the world, the sky is disappearing the way people should see it because of cities and light pollution. I mean, it's part of the advancement of civilization. We put up lights, but then you block out the sky. But, on a clear night in any major city, you might see 150 stars. New York City, you're lucky if you see 24 stars.
Yeah.
Okay? In our planetarium here, we show 9,000. Because that's what you would see if you didn't have the light pollution under a clearless night sky. And we don't even show, actually, it's a little over 11,369 stars is what humans would see under perfect conditions on any given time of night. So that's why planetariums need to show people what the sky is supposed to look like, what it used to look like, to show you those things that makes you want to, leave Lexington and go out into the countryside someplace and look at something. Or, here we're kind of lucky living in eastern Kentucky. You only have to drive a mile or two out of Painesville or Prestonsburg or Pikeville to see a decent sky.
Yeah.
But places like New York or L.A., they haven't seen the sky the way it's supposed to be seen in probably 40 years.
And probably never will.
And never will. And that's the purpose. That's one of the purposes of planetariums, to show people the sky the way nature intended to see the sky.
See, it's just so weird that you have all of these ancient civilizations that talk about these sky people and help from other terrestrial beings and yada, 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 and how different we are from each and every other organism and creature here. I mean, a dog looks like a cat. They both walk on four legs. animals are very similar to
Right.
one another here on Earth, yet humans are vastly different
Yes.
from every single thing. And it's
Yeah.
almost, it feels like we were put here as just some experiment, because I could see us doing that, like we were what we were going to do with Mars, just put a bunch of people in a space shuttle, take them to this planet. We'll check in on them and see how everything goes.
And there's
I
only
could see
so
us doing
far that any scientists or anybody can go back in time to understand the beginning, so to speak. You know, and I'm talking both from a scientific standpoint and from a religious standpoint, because at some point nobody knows. I used to have, there was this great guy I used to know upstate New York, Reverend Zimmer. He was the head of the Catholic Church up in Auburn. Reverend Zimmer and I used to sit down, open up a bottle of wine, and just talk about the universe.
Yeah.
And I wish I would have recorded some of those conversations, because there's two people that whose jobs are different and who have different views, but when it all comes down to it, in a sense, they're all the same views, just expressed differently. And we used to have some awesome conversations about what was really at the beginning of everything. And neither of us could really come up with an answer from a scientific or religious standpoint. We threw around stuff that was awesome, and we used to love to get together. And he passed away several years ago, but it's one of the coolest conversations I've ever had about anything was always talking to Reverend Zimmer.
Because it's so fascinating. What I love about science, and especially astrology, is we have no idea really how anything works.
Right, exactly.
And it's so fascinating because you're learning something new each and every day, and it's exciting.
Yeah.
And I was never big into mathematics or English or anything like that, but science has always fascinated me. It's beautiful.
And you know, that's a cool thing about astronomy. Thomas Jefferson called it the Renaissance science, because you can't teach astronomy without teaching physics, chemistry, biology, history, and even nowadays, even English literature, because so many things in outer space are named after characters in Shakespeare stories and stuff like that, and stars and planets and moons have been named after stuff like that. So that's and even mathematics. You can't teach astronomy without geometry or algebra. So that's why Thomas Jefferson was a big amateur astronomer when he was president, as his whole life, and said astronomy was a Renaissance science. If you learn astronomy, you could learn about all sorts of different things, and that's even in our teachings in the planetarium. We even go back into history. You know, with our star machine, we can go back 100,000 years and show the sky the way it was, you know, the star the wise men saw, or the way the sky was when the pyramids built, and actually show people the transition from when the North Star wasn't the North Star to what it is now. And that's the cool thing about stuff like Planetarium, is we can put all this stuff together and show people how things were, even how they're going to be in the future with the sky. We know that.
Yeah, I mean, we just now had the first photo of the black hole released.
Black hole, yes.
That's really fascinating right there, because then you get talking about other dimensions and yada yada yada. Because who knows? We are still very dumb to how this world works. We don't even know how thoughts work.
Yeah, that's right. And the first black hole was discovered back in 72 or 73. So to get a first, not a real photograph, but imagery from radio telescope data. So it's as close to a photograph as we can get. So to have all those years in between, from the 70s to now, to finally be able to have an image, it took that long to get the technology to do that. It's wild.
Since you're a lot smarter than me, what do you think is on the other side of a black hole?
You know, people always ask me stuff like that. And that's a whole other science of astronomy, and that's just not my expertise or field. You know, I mean, you could watch a dozen different science fiction movies. Is it another dimension? Is it the past? Is it a tunnel? Is there a wormhole to something else? That also is from that movie. You got to see that movie Contact, but Jodie Foster. You would love it. A lot of that is in that movie, but that's way beyond my area of expertise. And only because it when I start thinking about it, and even when I start reading about stuff like that, cosmology, birth and death of the universe, black holes, wormholes, I get so frustrated because even as a professional astronomer, I don't understand it. So I get so frustrated, I can't even continue reading it. Astronomy encompasses a lot, and it's just not my expertise area. I don't know.
But it really is fascinating.
It is. It's cool.
But Steve, it's been a pleasure talking with you, buddy. It is
Yeah.
always a good time. For anybody who wants to come check out the Planetarium, the East Kentucky Science Center, and see a cool laser show and get
Yeah.
to pick your brain a little bit, how do they do that?
Yeah, we're open normal hours, 1 to 4 p.m. Tuesday through Friday, Saturdays noon to 4. Our schedule of shows are a little bit different. Planetarium / laser shows during the week at 1:30 and 3, and on Saturday 1 and 2:30. But catch our Facebook page. It's East Kentucky Science Center and Planetarium, not just East Kentucky Science Center. East Kentucky Science Center and Planetarium. I've been posting our schedules on there every other day because they're different than what we normally had. But yeah, come on out, pick my brain. We got a great exhibit in the exhibit hall, the way we work. But come out and see the sky and the star show, and now through September 30th, laser beetles, and that's a really good one.
Oh, I forgot to ask you about that. Is this like the suit and tie TV Beatles, or is this the after they got back from India
Okay,
Beatles?
this is a combination of stuff like Ed Sullivan Show Beatles in 1963 to some of the Sgt. Pepper kind of stuff.
Nice.
So it's a little bit of both, and I remember watching them on Ed Sullivan the first time on TV in 1960. Whatever, I'm old.
Girls were fainting in the stands.
Yes,
that is crazy to think about.
They were cool. Yes, the old suit and tie Beatles with the strange haircuts, which now are not that strange.
Do you got a favorite Beatles song?
Not really.
Don't Let Me Down's mine.
But I like the older once they started the Sgt. Pepper stuff and then the Yoko Ono stuff, I wasn't really a Beatles fan. I was the old, I Want to Hold Your Hand, Help, Hard Day's Night. I was from that old early '60s stuff.
Hey, it was all good though. The Beatles will forever be possibly the best boy band or even band in general to ever exist.
Yeah, a lot of really good stuff came out of them and opened up doors for a lot of other people.
Well, a lot of good stuff is at the East Kentucky Science Center and Planetarium. Ladies and gentlemen, Steve Russo, thank you, my friend.
Oh, thanks for having me here.
See you next week, folks. Boom.